Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you guys can hear us all. We want to thank you for participating in this NABCA webinar, and we welcome you to the presentation. There's an app for that. Before I introduce our speakers from Texas, I wanted to address a few things. This webinar will highlight how the Texas ABC has used a complaint app that allows citizens to report sales to minors or intoxicated persons, and after-hours sales and other violations of the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code through email, by phone, or through postal services. We expect the webinar to last about 45 minutes or so with room for Q&A at the end. If there are lots of questions and if attendees don't mind, we may stay on a little bit longer. So please know that once the webinar begins, I'm not able to acknowledge receipt of questions, but know that we will answer any questions at the end. This presentation is being recorded, and we hope to make it available for playback later. If you have a question, please type it in the question box, which is in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. At the end of the presentation, I will come back and ask the questions for our speakers to answer them. We are pleased to have several representatives of the Texas ABC with us today, and I'd now like to just read some brief bios of our presenters. Carolyn Beck is now Director of Communications and Governmental Relations. She joined the TABC in October 2003 as a Public Information Officer. Her primary duties include being the agency spokesperson and legislative liaison. She spearheads various special projects, including the agency's biennial strategic plan. Prior to TABC, Carolyn spent 13 years at the Texas Youth Commission, working in various divisions. She has 7 years of experience in the private sector, managing internal operations for a startup company. She earned a bachelor's degree from the Plan 2 Liberal Arts Honors Program and a master's degree from the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs, both at the University of Texas at Austin. We also have with us Regional Director Randy Field. He attended the Harris County Sheriff's Academy and began his career with the TABC in June 1989. He was initially stationed in El Paso as an agent before being transferred to the Bryan office. He has received several promotions and is now Major of the Coastal Bend region. Randy graduated from Texas A&M University in 1988 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Agricultural Economics. And also participating in the call will be Mindy Carroll, who after teaching in public education started her career with the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission in 2006 as the education specialist. She's received several promotions and is now director of the education division. This division is responsible for managing the state's UDL block grant, and Mindy is the UDL state coordinator. In 2011, the division managed about $1.5 million in funding and distributed grants to 19 different projects. Mindy also oversees all educational programming, including the Seller Server Training Program for the TABC. And so, guys, thank you very much for participating in our presentation today. Major Field is the person who has charge of the screen, and so we will let him go with it, but Carolyn is going to speak. So Carolyn, go right ahead. Or did I get that wrong?
Yeah, backwards. Randy's going to start.
Randy's going to start. Okay, so Major Field, you're going to start.
What we've got is, in March of 2013, this past year, part of a spring break initiative, our agency rolled out this complaint app and kind of targeted it at that spring break crowd, obviously the younger crowd, kind of the mobile crowd. Everybody's carrying around a smartphone in their hand or in their pocket, and we wanted to make it more convenient and easier for people to file a complaint right when it's occurring or right when they're seeing it, as opposed to the old method of having to go home, get on a computer, send an email, or make a phone call to one of the offices during business hours. So that's the mobile complaint app. There's an app for that. As we know, like today, there's an app for everything in the world. And let me, all right, my PowerPoint is not moving screens.
It's not advancing?
No, am I in control?
You should be.
Okay, there we go. Now we're moving. When to file a complaint, anytime there's a violation of any sort at a location licensed to serve alcoholic beverages, we want the public to be able to file a complaint, and obviously we want to make it easy, because the easier it is, the more likely it is that somebody will file the complaint. Some of the things that are on the top of the list are selling alcohol to minors, intoxicated persons. Some of the areas have problems with the legal hours of sale. Where I'm at in Houston, that's one of our larger problems, is locations just operating throughout the night. 2 a.m. is the cutoff time, but they're running till some of them until opening day the next day. Other things: gambling, drug use, prostitution. Basically anything that we refer to as the vice-type crimes. We want people to be able to complain to TABC when they see those violations occurring again, and do it in a convenient, quick, efficient way. There's an app for everything out there these days, and the agency felt like this was the way to stay up with technology, and again appeal to a younger crowd and give them the opportunity, because the younger crowd is less likely to send an email or make a phone call to the TABC office. Different ways that you can file a complaint. Obviously, the old ways, we start off, you can make a phone call to the office, any of the TABC offices, and the good thing is it really doesn't matter where you're at or which office you call, it'll get directed to the right place. Email, we've got a complaint email box where it's complaints@tabc.state.tx.us, and that will get routed through our headquarters and then routed back out into the field. Obviously, somebody can send one by mail. We don't get a lot of those these days, but occasionally from maybe the more senior crowd, we get something in the actual mailbox. Fax, again, not very common, but occasionally we still get a fax. In person, somebody may either come into the office, somebody may catch us when we're in a location occasionally, and complain about a violation at another location. Somebody can go to our website. There's an opportunity on our website to file a complaint through our website. And then the one we're talking about, and the newest one, is the mobile complaint app. Again, where somebody can very easily, very conveniently file the complaint. They can be sitting at the bar or in the grocery store or at the liquor store, wherever they may be. If they see the violation or what they believe is a violation occur, they can get on their smartphone and file the complaint right then. As you see, a message from our chief that basically says the longer it takes to file the complaint, the less accurate it's going to be, and the less likely that it's going to be that somebody is actually going to file it, because as we know, as time goes on, the importance of filing the complaint really diminishes. This is the home page to our app. It's free to the public. You can get it on a couple of different ways. You can go to the individual app store, whether it's an Android or the Apple device that you have. Search for it by TABC, and a couple of different apps will come up. This is one of the ones that will come up. Or you can go to our website, and the address there at the tabc.state.tx.us/mobile apps, and download it that way. Very simple to download. I've downloaded it myself just to make sure I know what it says and how it operates. Here's the app once inside. Once you click on the Create a Complaint, this is the screens, and the first two on the left are actually a scroll. That's all one screen. It just takes more than one screen to actually put it all on there. Top of the thing, establishment name. the more accurate that is, obviously the better off we are, because we can't find it in our computer if we don't get an accurate name. The establishment location, again, the more accurate that is, the better off we are. Specific numeric address is preferred, but sometimes we can search through our database and find what it is if we don't have real specific information. The county is going to be pretty much a requirement, because that's how those are going to be sent back out into the field. When this is submitted, it goes to that complaint email address that if you went to our website or you emailed in a complaint to the complaint email address, this goes to that same place. It's just formatted a little differently. But when they're sent back out into the field, the county is the indicator as to which field office to send it to. In the city, obviously, again, the more information that we have, the more accurate we can be at which location it is. Then it says, has incident description. And on that incident description, what we've got is we've got several different check boxes, again, to make it simple for somebody to file the complaint. There's check boxes for minor-related violations, intoxication-related violations, hours violations, drugs, prostitution, gambling, and then we've got the one you always have to have is other. So if it doesn't fall within one of those categories, you can click other. And then below that is incident details, and that's a free text box where you can go in and kind of describe, again, what the details are. The more specific these are, the better, again, that we are. When somebody files a complaint that a certain location is selling to minors, that's some basic information. But if they will tell us they're selling to minors and it's a clerk with this name or that works at this time and it occurs on these days and these times of the day, that really helps us with our investigation as opposed to kind of shooting in the dark. So that incident details is very important as well. Below that is the email address of the person that's filing the complaint. That's not a mandatory box. That's only if they want to be notified of the outcome. We accept hundreds of complaints every month that are anonymous. People don't want to know, don't want to leave their personal information, don't want anybody to know that they called for whatever reason, and that's fine. We accept those. But also we will notify the complainant if they desire. And so if they leave their email address, they click one of those two boxes there, either notify me of the outcome or submit anonymously. If it's submit anonymously, it'll go and submit the complaint. If they want to be notified, it goes to the next screen where it asks for their name, address, etc. So depending on how they want to be notified, if they want to be notified by telephone or email, email is obviously the preference usually, or if they want to be notified in writing with a letter, we can obviously do that as well. Once this is done, is submitted, what we get to that complaint email box is this is the email that goes in there, the template. So we've got the name of the location, or the name of the location, address, the county, the city, again, those description details that they've given, other descriptions, incident details, and email address, again, if they want to be contacted. That goes to our complaint email box in Austin. Somebody in Austin looks at that, determines from that city and county what field office to send it to, and then that email is routed out to one of the field supervisors for the investigation. The investigation is entered at the field level into our statewide computer system. We've got a complaint system that we entered into. Again, we're getting hundreds of those a month, and I couldn't tell you an exact number. In the Coastal Bend region, we usually carry about 200 to 250 open complaints at any given time, and that's approximately 1/3 of the state, more or less. So that kind of gives you an idea of how many we have. They're assigned individual complaint numbers, obviously for tracking purposes. We've got a complaint log. They're reviewed and tracked by the supervisor, again, by geographic area. Our field agents are assigned by geographic area, and so it will go eventually to an individual agent to be investigated. Sometimes we'll get complaints for violations or for allegations that really aren't violations. Somebody just doesn't like the way they were treated, the server was rude, or they didn't have my kind of tequila, whatever that might be. We get those complaints. Those are obviously not violations, and so we don't enter that or investigate that. We refer some to other agencies. If we get a complaint, say, for a fire code violation or a health code violation, we will refer those to the appropriate agency and request that they investigate it for their violations. Or, again, if it's a regular violation or allegation that we will work, we assign that for investigation. We try to get most of those done. We have a 60-day window that we shoot for. That's one of our legislative performance goals, is to get 85% of our complaints investigated and closed within 60 days. And we usually stay a little higher than that, or I think closer to 90% are closed within that time frame. That's kind of the summary of the complaint app. The next app is our Spirits Texas mobile app, and Carolyn Beck will speak about that.
Thanks, Randy. Our Spirits Texas mobile app is a little bit different from the complaint app in several ways, and the main difference is that it is pushing information out to the public or the user as opposed to an avenue for them to send information in to us. We were working with a company called Nubis on some other projects here, and they volunteered to, because they had access to our and knowledge of our databases of information, they offered to create this app for us for free. And it basically ties databases that we have into Google Maps, and so I'll show you in a minute what it does. But because we got it for free, we can offer it free to the public, and it's available for Androids and Apple mobile devices. So Randy, can you take us to the next screen? So the main menu breaks our license and permit holders into various categories, and so a person can choose any of these categories if they're looking for a brewery in the area, or they need a liquor store, a convenience store, or perhaps a sexually oriented business. And let me mention that this could be used by the public in searching for a place to shop, but it can also be used by other law enforcement agencies if they're looking for something in particular, and for people concerned about locations in their area that have violations. So they can pick one of these categories, and the one circled is miscellaneous, and it will bring up the results that are in your area. And under the settings, we don't have this shown on a slide, but under settings, you can set it to sort different ways. For example, you can have it show those locations that are within 20 miles of you, within 50 miles, or within 200 miles. And you can set it so that it shows only active permits, only inactive permits, or both. And you can set it to show those locations that have never had a violation, or those that have one or more violations, or both. And in Texas, for some people, where you can carry your concealed handgun is important. And so there's a setting where you can have it show only those locations where you can take your concealed handgun, those locations where you can't take a concealed handgun, or both. And you can have it sort either by the distance from you, or by the number of violations, or alphabetically, which is what it's showing now. So basically in this, you pick the category, and you tell it you want to see the ones that are nearby, and it brings up a list. And you can see there on the right where it says Walgreens, the red V shows that it's had one or more violations. You can see because the gun is blue, it means you can carry your concealed handgun there as opposed to red. And there's a little picture of a bottle of wine with a 17, which means that their permit allows them to sell wine up to 17%, as opposed to some parts of the state you can only sell wine up to 14%. And then, Randy, if you can take us to the next slide, we'll see what it looks like when you choose one of those locations that is near you. So we've chosen Water to Wine, which is a winery permit holder. And you can see the owner's name and the address. If you want, you can click on directions, and it'll take you to Google Maps and show you how to get there from where you are. That wine percent is for retail locations and would be either 14 or 17%. The gun sign is listed as unknown here because the gun signs are relevant to retail locations. And if you choose permit status, then it takes you to the screen that you can see to the right where it shows the permit number, the status is current, you can see the expiration date, and you can see the previous permit held at this location and its status and expiration date. And you can also see underneath permit status on the left the number of violations they had in 2013 and the number of violations they had in 2010. That implies that in 2011 and 12 they didn't have any violations. So Randy, if you take us to the next screen, then we can see what happens if you decide you want to look at those violations. So if you choose the number of violations in year 2013 and it shows there was one, you can click on that and you can see that it was that they were in trouble for possessing uninvoiced alcoholic beverages and that they received a warning and that the investigation or the administrative action is closed, and you can see the incident date. And Randy, on the next slide, in addition to the nearby function, which is what we've been looking at, there's also a search function where you can search for things, locations by trade name or by address. You can say that you want to see locations on 6th Street in Austin, which is our bar district. And you can search by zip code in case you want to find out like what the, I can go in here and look up what are the liquor stores in my zip code because I want to know which ones have had violations and which ones haven't. Maybe I only want to give my business to those that have not had any violations to try to promote them. And so that's just one of the many ways that this system can be used. And that is the end of the pictures, but I'm welcome to answer any questions about this, and I know that Randy can answer questions about the complaints app as well.
And also, Mindy, I think you had some closing thoughts that you wanted to share.
One thing that we were asked to talk to you guys about.
Could you get closer to the phone? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
One thing that we were asked to talk to you all about that wasn't actually covered in the slides was how we actually covered the funding for the complaint app. And as the Major explained, that was a grant program that we got to support our spring break efforts. For that particular one, it's paid by the Justice Assistance Grant, which basically you have to have law enforcement in your organization. It's a federal program. And we got, I believe if you separate it all out, the app probably cost about $10,000. It was a whole educational program. It had the app. It has PSAs that are on our YouTube channel that promoted the use of the app. We paid for airtime to run those PSAs throughout Texas. So I think that would be a pretty good estimate of how much that one cost. If you don't have, you want to do something like this, but your organization doesn't have law enforcement, so JAG funding isn't an option for you. One other place that you can look for funding that's paid for apps for us and helps us support them is through NHTSA, which would be through your Department of Transportation. They'll pay for apps, and this would be one that they would have supported because we actually talked to them about paying for it first through Texas. And so that doesn't require law enforcement. It just requires that effort to prevent drinking and driving or underage drinking consumption and operating a motor vehicle. So those are a couple of options if you're looking for money. My division handles the actual writing of the grants and these educational programs. And to give you an idea of NHTSA's support, we have a third app that will be coming out pretty soon that's basically an industry guide to help our industry members about how we operate, what they need to do to follow the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code that we've moved into an app, and NHTSA through TxDOT picked up 100% of the funding for that one.
Okay, that's great. Now, Mindy or anybody, you guys had mentioned that it was an external company that created this for you. And could you, and you said you had a relationship with them. So internally versus externally, were there some points that you guys wanted to cover regarding, you know, and I guess it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I know we mentioned the name of the company, but maybe maybe spelling their name if anybody wants to Google or get in contact with them to see maybe, you know, what and how this could work for them.
With the Spirits app, I think we had two different companies do the different apps, but the Spirits app was developed by a company called Neubus, and that's N-E-U-B-U-S. And if you actually pull up the app on your device, it gives you some information about Neubus, at least their name's on there. And we were working with them on a contract to scan our licensing files, decades worth of files, so that we could bring it all online, which was a huge deal for us because we got to get rid of massive filing cabinets full of documents and start fresh forward, where when somebody brings an application to us, we scan it in, and then immediately folks in our field office and in our headquarters can view the application and start working on it simultaneously on the different things that they do in the different offices. I'm kind of off topic, but this is a really huge thing that Neubus did for us with regard to our efficiency and effectiveness. And so once they worked with us on that, and then they understood how our different databases worked. And we have a database that's available on our website for the public, which is, we refer to it as our public inquiry system. And the majority of the information that's in the Spirits app is in that database on our website, and you can go run reports and find it all. But what Neubus did was to connect that database with Google Maps so that you can tie it to your personal location. And there's a little bit of added information that they pull from a database that's not public, that provides additional information about the type of business. And so that's, you know, they were generous enough to do that for us for free. And I think that the benefit to them was to be able to show people what it is that they can do so that hopefully they can get future business.
And I know we were talking also about you know, whether if folks were interested, if this would be something that would be more of a template, or if it would have to be built from scratch, if you will. And you know, I guess we kind of concluded that it was probably the framework was there, but it would still have to be something that was be specially tailored to the particular agency that was inquiring, right?
Right. I mean, with us, we specifically had a database with information that had already been determined to be public, and they tied that database into Google Maps. And so for another agency, it would really, I'm sure that they could tailor it to whatever they need. It's just a matter of cost and depending on how different their setup is from ours.
Okay. Okay.
But I think the bottom line is what we know they can do is take a database and tie it into Google Maps and develop an app that's really user-friendly.
Okay. And so if anybody has any questions, I'm going to encourage them to type it in the question box. Now, Mindy, you had mentioned NHTSA and UDL, and were there other funding sources you say were possibly available? I know, I guess, NABCA is a possible source if you're interested in this, because NABCA also has education fund grants, but as I say it, I may not be accurate, so we'll have to double check on that part. But any other funding sources?
It would just depend on what kind of funding sources are available, either for enforcement efforts in their community. The UDL grant at one point in time, which you mentioned in my bio, they would have supported a similar program, but it was pretty much cut this last go-round of budget cuts. And so I think each state this last year got less than $60,000. So I don't know, your state gets to determine how they give out that block money. I don't know if they would be able to support any real programming any longer. In Texas, we're pretty much doing one video production this year with that funding source.
Okay. Okay. And as far as how this was developed, I mean, did you guys think about and plan this, and was there a let's say a social media plan that you had for this, or did it kind of happen just by the nature of your relationship with NUBIS?
With the Spirits app, it just happened because of our relationship with NUBIS. I think with the Complaints app, it was developed as part of an overall spring break education plan. Is that right, Mindy?
Yes, it was part of a large educational program that we did for spring break that involved educating people about the concepts of alcohol by volume and had a lot more complex pieces to it. That was just one small piece of it. In fact, the production company that professionally made all of our PSAs and training videos and everything through that educational program are the ones that we just did one contract, and they actually outsourced the production of the Complaint app and through themselves. So Castleview Productions is who did that Complaint app, but they didn't have that source coding. People don't actually work for Castleview Productions. He just took a subcontract to do it.
Okay. All right. All right. Anything for the good of the order from the Texas folks that you think is important for folks to know?
I can't think of anything.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
Okay. All right. And just before we sign off, because it looks like we're getting ready to close, anybody listening online, if anybody has any questions, I encourage you to type it in the questions bar. I'll be more than happy to ask it on your behalf, so we can wait a few seconds to see if anything comes through. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for participating, both as presenters and as attendees. Thank you, Carolyn, Major Field, and Mindy for your time and for sharing your knowledge with us. If anybody has a question that comes up that we did not address, or if you think of something afterward, feel free to email it to me, and Major Field and Carolyn and Mindy, if you don't mind, I'll forward it to you, and then you guys can respond, and then I can get the information back out to folks. So thank you. And as your membership association, we'd like you to know that NABCA is here to help you however we can. So we invite your ideas for future webinar topics, and so please feel free to also share that with me. So thank you guys very much for listening in. You all have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Bye-bye.